That's Bill Day. Good morning. Welcome to the May 26, 2026 regular board meeting of the Tuolumne Utilities District. We start with the pledge.
United States of America. Republic. Stands. One nation. Under God. Indivisible. with liberty.
We're going to start this morning with a closed session. Oh, the public forum. You're right. The board welcomes public attendance and comments on district matters. This section is reserved for items not on the agenda. The board may not discuss or take action on these items, but values and considers all input. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak? Then we'll go to closed session. You want to read the closed session?
Closed session A, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency representatives Don Perkins and Marcon, employee organization, Northern California District Council of Laborers, Construction, Production, Maintenance Laborers, Local Union Number 1130.
And we'll recess to closed session and then we'll return back here. Yeah, she did.
Live.
Reconvene into open session. The board would like to report out of closed session that the district has reached tentative agreement with the union on a successor memorandum of understanding. Melissa, please read the associated agenda item B.
Okay, item B, consider resolution approving the memorandum of understanding between Tuolumne Utilities District and the Northern California District Council of Laborers, Construction, Production, and Maintenance Laborers, Union number 1130.
And General Manager Perkins, will you
Yes,
be presenting this item?
I will be. Good morning, President Halls, members of the board. This agreement represents a 5-year commitment between the district and our employees, providing stability and predictability for both our workforce and our financial planning. It includes targeted wage adjustments in the first year to bring the employee compensation closer in line with the market. In general, within about 5% of the comparable agencies, which is critical to remain competitive in recruiting and retaining qualified staff, and cost of living adjustments tied to CPI every 2 to 5 years. In years 2 through 5 years. This directly translates to maintaining a level of service for our community, depends on reliable water delivery, wastewater treatment, and emergency services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The agreement also includes changes to healthcare insurance contributions that reduce the district's share of long-term benefit costs, helping to manage future financial impacts. Overall, this is a balanced agreement that supports our employees while remaining mindful of our responsibility to our customers and the long-term sustainability to the district. As customary, this MOU salary and benefit provision will apply to all district employees, both represented and unrepresented, except for the general manager. And your staff recommends approval.
Do I hear a motion for that?
I move we approve. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Excellent work.
Thank you, board. Good job. Good teamwork.
Particularly Sparkon and Josh Lepper worked for a year, more than a year, to make this happen. Really good job. So next
Okay.
item.
Consent calendar. Item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of May 12th, 2026, and special board meeting, May 13th, 2020.
Anybody have any changes to the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the CC, that calendar.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? I vote.
Okay, regular business. Item number 2, introduction and discussion of the fiscal year 2026-2027 capital improvement budget.
Mr. President, respectfully, I would request a few minutes. Everything moved much faster than we had expected. And Jen was monitoring things, but if you can just give her a few minutes, she'll set up, she has a PowerPoint, and we'll begin the presentation.
More than happy to do that. Yeah, it does. Shoots by, you hardly even knew it.
President Hollis, I have a suggestion. Melissa, you want me to do the coach's corner while they're setting up?
We can, if you want to move it around.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, just, this will only be a few minutes.
So let's do coach's corner first. We'll give him more time.
I think they're ready.
Sorry about that, guys. These were a
While
lot
she's
faster
doing
than
that, I do have
thought you were gonna do.
Couple opening, just remarks. So the district's been in existence for, 34, 36. Yeah. 34 years now, yeah. And it's only been the last 10 years that we had a CIP. So to put things into perspective, for majority of our existence, we operated kind of on a year-to-year budgeting, capital budgeting. It was largely reactive because of our deferred maintenance and our funding levels. It wasn't until 2016 that we had our first CIP, and that was in conjunction with a rate increase that has set the district on a path to really accelerate capital investment over the last 10 years. I'd like to recognize Jen for her effort on this CIP. We're fortunate here at the district to have some real institutional knowledge in the engineering department. So I started the CIP, and Gadiel spent a few years working on the CIP. Jen has done it the last 2 years. And when we're done with the CIP this year, it always goes on our website, where we also share it with the city and the county. And it's a very professional document. I mean, as you'll see when it gets published and it's done in conjunction with the operating budget, you'll see a document that not only can the public go find exactly where the project is, what year it's scheduled to occur in, what the cost estimate is, and a description of the purpose and need for the project. So anyway, I just wanted that context that this is our 10th year doing this. And what you're going to see today is primarily focused just on this fiscal year. However, we're here to answer any other questions that you have.
Okay, good morning. Jennifer Batt, Senior Engineer. I'm gonna be giving you an overview of our capital improvement plan for fiscal year 27. Each year, the board is responsible for approving a district fiscal year operating budget, and part of that budget is the capital improvement plan. It's a subset of the overall budget. The capital improvement plan is typically a 5 to 10 year document. Here at the district, we do a 5-year document. It provides information and identifies capital projects for raw water, water distribution, treated water, collections, sewer treatment, reclamation, and then other projects that don't fall within those categories like IT or SCADA upgrades or facility upgrades. If we were doing paving out here, that would all be captured in a CIP project. The projects are typically anything that's over $50,000. If it's under that, it ends up going into operations and maintenance. So yeah, we do a 5-year CIP, and it's carried out by the board's authority to allocate funding through the project, or through the budget process on an annual basis. It typically represents about 25% of our operating budget. However, it may fluctuate just based on operational needs. So if, cost of chemicals goes up and it takes into more, or is using up more of that operating budget, then the CIP goes down. Funding for the implementation of the CIP is ensured through a board adopted budget. Funding sources may include rates, which is the majority of our budget or revenue for these projects, or capacity fees, which is around 200K per year. It might be a developer constructed project where, for instance, if there is a tank or a main line that's going to be constructed by a developer, we might reach out to them and say, hey, we see future growth in this area. So although your project might require a 6-inch main, we'd like to upgrade it to an 8-inch main, and then we will end up paying that additional cost to upgrade the main. Sometimes they're funded by loans, and we also have been very successful in getting grants. The initial list of the CIP for the fiscal year, for each fiscal year is originally developed by our foremen and our superintendents. They're boots on the ground. They're out there seeing what really needs to be done. And so they come in with their list of projects and their priority of those projects. And then we put them in an order to say, okay, well, maybe something's imminent failure. We didn't know about it and all of a sudden it popped up. Let's take care of that first. So priorities do change from year to year. Sometimes there's a regulatory compliance change where the state mandates something. Well, something that might not have been on our list at all or kind of farther out might move up to this fiscal year. Sometimes grant availability will also shift priorities. So maybe it's a project that's not necessarily high on our list, but if the state says, hey, we've got this grant for a storage project or a pipeline project, then we'll move it into our CIP to make sure that we can get that money. And also we base it on health and safety. And also the board's direction. So boards change from every several years, and we have a strategic plan that we're always looking forward to complete. So sometimes the board priorities also change this list. Once the superintendents are done with their list, then management sits down and looks at the list, and we work with Carolyn as well to figure out a budget to make sure we can accommodate projects. And so, Carolyn will give me a target, and if the target's here, I put all the projects into fiscal year 27 based on priority until we meet that budget, and then the rest of the projects get kicked to the next year, to the next year, to the next year. So I think that's about it for that, and I'll just go straight into my presentation. Okay. So this presentation's not the 5-year, although I will very briefly highlight some of the 5-year numbers. This is mostly a presentation on what's going to be projected for this next fiscal year 27. So yeah, we already went over this slide. I think I jumped the gun there. But the CIP also identifies not just the capital projects, but also equipment purchases, major studies, and it provides a planning schedule and identifies the financing options for each project. So this is a very quick snapshot of our fiscal year 27 CIP and the 5-year CIP. The CIP does not include grant projects or loan revenue. And so for this fiscal year, we have $3.12 million in water projects and $2.51 million in wastewater projects for a total of $5.63 million. For the entire 5-year CIP, we have $17.8 million for water projects, $7.7 million for sewer projects, which is $25.5 million for our 5-year CIP. So I'm going to give you a little snapshot or a little sneak preview to our CIP document. And I don't expect you guys to, really look at every single number up there, but kind of bigger picture of kind of where we're sitting from year to year. We're roughly around the 5 million mark for all the projects between fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 31. With the majority of our projects typically landing in the water fund, it is, whenever we have a general fund project, we split it 70-30 because the water department is, and infrastructure is just a lot larger than the sewer infrastructure. Getting on that, you'll see on the general fund, we do split general water and sewer 70-30. On the water fund, the majority of our projects are distribution projects. We have a lot of distribution infrastructure out there. The raw water has $0.15 million in it. Most of that occurring in the first few years of the EIP. Treated water, we have 0.55 million, and water distribution 1.92 million, for a total of 2.62 million. Now that number differs from the number that I had on that first slide because all the general projects are now peeled out, and this is just for raw water, treated water, and distribution. It doesn't count for water vehicles, SCADA upgrades for the water side. So the 5-year CIP for just the water projects is 16.9 million. A few projects to highlight that's on the horizon for this coming fiscal year is the Upper Columbia chute flume replacement. This pipeline is undersized and the stacked rock piers have severely deteriorated over time and they're due for replacement. A failure of this pipeline would result in a supply disruption at the Columbia Water Treatment Plant. And so we intend to install a new 20-inch pipeline with new steel supports. This is a project funded by our water customers. It costs approximately $154,000, and we anticipate starting construction and completing construction this year. The Sonora Water Treatment Plant Flocculation Basin Rehabilitation Project. This project started last year. You saw it on our CIP last year. Since then, we've gotten in there, we've cleaned it out, we've identified how we need to proceed, what modifications and what we need to fix within that basin. So, sorry, I'm losing my voice. So this year, we're going to start doing those fixes, and that will require several timeframes in which we can drain the said basin, make a small repair, fill it back up, because we have to keep that plant running. So we'll have that said basin down for maybe 2 days at a time, need to get it all connected back up and then run it for another week or so and then do it again until all the repairs are made. But it takes a little coordination. The Willow Springs tank replacement, this one kind of just popped up on our radar a little more recently. Is another one of those, the tanks that we have that we're trying to replace before failure. The rafters are down on the inside of it again, or not again. Sometimes that happens with our tanks, with the internal roof rafters, which is now why we do external roof rafters. We actually just had the geotech out there just last week so that we can get that project up and going.
Hey, Jen, I got a question.
Mhm.
When was that? Well, any idea when that Willow Springs tank was built? Probably in the 60s, maybe?
I don't know.
Late 70s? Uh-huh. Okay. And you had rafters down, huh? Rafters plural.
I believe plural.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
we're-
scary. Good job getting after that.
Yeah, there's a home right across the street, just out of this shot that, if it does fail, it would probably do some damage there. So part of that project is taking down this tank and replacing it, but also taking down about half of this building and giving us some more space. I apologize, this picture is old. In the CIP, we did update it in the document, so You can see what it looks like now. And then there's some stuff up on the hill up here that we're gonna also get rid of.
Another quick question. When was, how did we discover that we were in risk of failure? How did that occur?
Yeah, it's, the superintendent for the water distribution department came in and had some concerns there. And so we looked at it. I don't know, did we dive that one, Eric? Okay.
The what? Over? Cool. Thanks.
So that one's set, should be getting the geotech report back in the next few weeks. Jumping over to the sewer fund, we've got the sewer collections projects for this fiscal year at 1.71 million, sewer treatment at 0.59 million, and reclamation at 0 million. We don't have any reclamation projects on the books for this fiscal year, although you will see them come back in fiscal year 30 and 31. So the total 5-year CIP for wastewater is 7.24 million. Notable projects that we're going to be working on this year is the Springfield Sewer Lift Station rehabilitation. That project has been designed, pumps have been ordered, so a lot of the money was spent this last fiscal year, although we haven't gotten delivery of it, the materials yet. We expect to finish that project by the end of next year. The standard sewer lift station rehabilitation. The site is unsecure, lacks standby power, and doesn't have emergency storage or potable water for washdown. If you recall, we brought a water main down Standard Road not too long ago to connect Curtis Creek, so now we can put in a potable water service to help our crews maintain that lift station and keep it clean. This project's funded by our sewer customers and is approximately $192,000. And then we have our general fund. General fund projects are like vehicles or facility maintenance, IT upgrades, SCADA upgrades. It's split 70-30, 70 going to water fund, 30% going to sewer fund. And then lastly, we have a lot of grant funded projects. So our CIP doesn't actually even, the dollar amount does not include grant funded projects. So in addition to all of the projects that you just saw, or that's on the back of your packet, these are some other grant opportunities that we are taking advantage of. The most notable grant that we have right now is $27.5 million for Sierra Pines. And then the Cuesta Heights Water Storage Project, that is for the construction of the Pedro Y tank and several other upgrades to that system that we applied for that grant and got reimbursed for several years after the fact. So it was pretty neat grant. Moeller Mutual consolidation for almost $5 million. Another grant project is the Valley Vista tank. We need to upsize that tank. And then a handful of smaller other, this Golden Sierra mobile home park, that's the mobile home park that's just right down the street. They just renamed it Golden Sierra. And that's a consolidation project. So they're their own water system and state stepped in and we're going to them into our system. So all in all, that's 35.6 million in grants.
Question,
Yeah, not too shabby.
grants, does that include loans too?
No,
Okay.
does not include loans. So like Sierra Pines, we have a $10 million loan and an $18 million loan. One's no interest and one is low interest.
I may just point out one thing, just on the math basis here. When you look at that, that's 35 million basically committed right now, under contract right now. And Jen just reviewed for you, our average capital investment is 5 million a year. That's water and sewer. So when you look at that, that's 7 years worth of grant contracts right now, not to mention, I gotta assume we're gonna get grants over the course of the next 5 years. So it puts into perspective the amount of investment we're making. It isn't just our CIP.
And the 35 million, that's in this fiscal year 27?
Correct. These are all active grants that we have already secured. Mhm. So yeah, you look at our CIP list and then you have to add all of these on top of that. Do you have any questions?
What, what is our, fuel cost? And I don't want to exact dollar amount. Just, and when I say fuel, I'm talking about gas, not diesel.
Well, that will be part of our operating budget discussion, but
You want to
I-
wait till then?
we don't have to. I can answer it. I don't have the breakdown between gas and diesel. I have it together, but it's about 402,000 is what we're budgeting for this upcoming fiscal year.
I knew it was a lot. It's kind of scary, really. So I noticed when I went through the agenda packet that we have numerous vehicles coming up to be replaced, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, TUD has a huge fleet, and so things are going to wear out and so on. To you, Eric, what for the water treatment plant operators, is there, when they go out to take care of the various water treatment plants, is there actual hands-on work that needs to be done other than operating the equipment and so on? I mean, I know that's probably a kind of a vague question, but I guess where I'm going with this is there a reason they need to have pickup trucks?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
They're packing stuff in the back of their trucks for the treatment plants, whether it's a little bit of chlorine or other tools, plumbing supplies,
Okay,
all that, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, they do more than, like Don likes to say, they do more than push buttons.
yeah, okay. Well, that, I just wanted to see, because I was wondering if, especially with the fuel situation we find ourselves in right now, if it wouldn't be advantageous to start trying to move the, at least the treatment plant operators to electric sedans or something like that, to where fuel gets eliminated and they can get charged while they're there at the water treatment plant, and they'll never not get home. That's something to think
No,
about.
yeah, for sure, because that is a whole other animal.
Right. But I mean, I think that the way things are going, maybe we might start having to think down that road.
Right.
I got a couple of things. One on the, going back to the water distribution, the biggest line item after the, the biggest line item is in the water distribution projects is scenic view trench paving, 649,000, almost 650,000. You didn't mention that. I just wonder, could maybe fill us in on that, because it is the biggest item in the budget.
Yes, so the scenic view trench paving it's due to the fact that we've done a lot of distribution projects in that area over the last year. So we had Summit, which I don't have all the footages off at the top of my head, but we brought a water main up Summit. We're going to be replacing a water main off of Turner Court and replacing the water main all down Meadowbrook. That hasn't happened yet, but it will. And so it's a combination of 4 different projects. There's Midland Drive too. So 4 different distribution improvement projects that will then need to be paved. It didn't make it on the presentation because paving doesn't make for a really great picture.
Sure, I understand.
But yeah, that's what that is. It's for paving of work we've already completed or have set to complete here shortly.
And then kind of along with that, in general fund, the largest capital item is a purchase paving equipment for 400,000.
Yes,
So we got about $1 million worth of paving expenditure.
correct.
So, or maybe help us understand.
Well, I'll
yeah.
take a stab at part of it, and I can see he's itching to respond as well. The county, they issued they adopted a dig once policy, and so we've been doing a lot more paving than we have in the past. So instead of trench paving some of our water mains, now they're making us do an entire lane width. And so we're hiring out so much paving now that we've gotten to the point where it's more economical to purchase our own and do it ourselves than to keep hiring out these large full lane paving projects.
So the paving equipment that we're getting, it's gonna be for our water leaks and small patches. We won't get into large paving projects. That will still get sent out to bid, but our budget this year for patch paving's 300,000.
Wow.
You know, so if
For
we
patch
get this
paving?
equipment, it's gonna pay for itself in 2 years by theory.
Yeah, and the large, like what Jen was referring to with Scenic View, Summit, Midland, Turner Court. Those are just best done by large paving equipment, you know, pavers that are setting it at 6, 8 feet width and going. And that project is out to bid right now. So, you know, where we sometimes have trouble getting these projects done in the fiscal year, this one we're gonna have done. Because paving's always really important to the public. They hate to see their roads torn up. So we have that out to bid, and we'll look to come to the board and ask for a recommendation to award here so we can do that paving this summer and then close out those projects.
But just perspective, what have been our paving expenditures over the, the past few years? Just years. You mentioned 300,000.
So patch paving,
Uh-huh.
we've been around 250. I'm kind of looking at Carolyn, 200. 10 years ago, we were. Yeah, to put things into perspective, you're paying like $38 to $40 a square foot for a 2-inch patch, which means that when Eric's crews run out to fix a leak and it's in the middle of the street and it's only a few square feet because they are very efficient in hydro excavating down and doing their repair and minimizing the impact to surrounding pavement, it still costs $40 a square foot because a local contractor has to mobilize and do sometimes traffic control.
Right.
Okay, sometimes they have to resaw cut, clean edge. It's just a very inefficient operation. So now we'll have that paving equipment. So we'll take advantage of that. But the large scale paving, which is just driven by mainline replacement, you have to put out because contractors like George Reed and others are just very efficient.
Then, so will we be doing that, operating that equipment in-house? Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So the payback, you think, is a couple years? Thinking out of the box. And I remember the bump in the road, so to speak, we had on a project a few years ago. Was it Phoenix Lake area? Anyway, so this will eliminate some of those bumps in the road, so to speak. No pun intended.
Well, the elimination of that bump in the road will be, we won't be using that particular contractor ever again.
Great, thank you.
I got a statement more than a question, but I learned something today. I didn't realize that TUD never had a CIP budget until 2016. That explains a lot, really does. And so that was a surprise to me. And anyway, it's nice to see we're putting a dent in all that deferred maintenance. So good job, guys.
So I had one back on the cars. The electric vehicle fleet, when we were up in Sacramento, we heard a lot about the carb mandate and that, and all the reasons we can't do it. In many cases, they don't have the truck. We can send the trucks up. It's cold. They go dead, all those things. So maybe keep looking for if there's one or two that we can do that are electric so we can get some ideas and how that works. And it'll also show, that we're trying. We understand that most of them can't.
Just a quick question on treated water projects, Sierra Pines ineligible grant expenses, 100,000. Maybe fill us in on that.
We don't have a explicit cost estimate. We put that in there as a placeholder, just knowing that the state has some ineligible expenses. Sometimes they're related to, let's just say, PR related things, maybe travel, holding meetings where there's meals and things like that. So I know we're not gonna have $100,000 of that, but we don't know exactly what the state is going to kick back to our finance department
Right.
when we submit these claims. And so this covers us. We don't want to be, it's prudent to put some money.
Yeah, that's wise. Kind of contingency. Then another quick question on the Sonora Vista tank consolidation. Well, that's not this year, so maybe we'll cover that next year sometime. We're just curious of you've got about $1 million in physical 28 and 29. I just would like to get refreshed on what that's about, but we can cover that at another time.
So I don't want to get us off topic, but on topic as far as asphalt goes. That's been a thorn in our side for a long time. And I know I got involved with a letter writing thing on Summit Drive and a couple other things last year. I'm just wondering, the crux of the problem is that the county has a stipulation that we can't, that no one is supposed to get into a recently paved road for a certain length of time, which makes sense. I mean, you don't want to put down new asphalt, just have somebody come in the next day and jackhammer it up and put a bump in it, so on. So that all makes sense. And I think that everyone should abide by that. But I think there's another side to that where, and this is a suggestion as a future agenda item for discussion, or maybe within staff to try and come up with some sort of idea, is it's fine and good that they have a requirement, but how about if TUD has a requirement that where we are being ignored right now when we contact the county and tell them that we are going to be tearing into a road to do some infrastructure work, that we're telling them in advance so that they can go ahead and be involved. And most of the roads that we get into are already in bad shape. So I guess where I'm going with this is it should be a two-way street. That TUD should have a requirement that the county gives us at least a year to 2 year advance notice of where they're going to be paving, so that we can take a look at the infrastructure, that what condition our infrastructure is in those areas, so that we can get the opportunity to fix it prior to them paving it, so that we don't have that problem going in afterwards. So I don't know, just a suggestion to maybe, I think what's fair one way should also be fair the other way.
Yeah, I'd chime in on that too. I agree that we're doing more road paving than they are. And the thing that Director Johnson and Director Kearns talked about that we went to our CIP 10 years ago. The county still hasn't. They're trying to do it right now. And I think that's one of the reasons they're having so much trouble with their paving, like last minute all the time. I hope they get that through so that they can start doing what Director Ringen's talking about and make it a little more even on the paving, but take time.
Good.
Yeah.
No, just to chime in on that, do we have any direct communication with the county Department of Roads or whoever handles that?
Yeah, Eric can go and Jen can go on a little bit more about the utility organizational meetings you have once or twice a year. But more recently, what Director Ringen was just talking about is about a year ago, right? We were thinking we're going to finish up with Summit, and we were on the hook for, I don't know, $300,000 or some number just to trench pave. And it would have been too much more for the county to chip in and do the whole thing. I was just asking the county if they had any money left in the coffers to help us pave the whole road versus just trench pave. We tried and tried and tried. Not a lot of great communication, but at the end of the day, they just didn't have the funds. They don't have the funds. So that's kind of the bad news. So I do like Director Ringen's approach, be proactive best we can, and I think we should and will. But interesting, right? I keep hearing on the campaign how they've moved, the county's now moved funds from something, TOT, into general fund for paving. So their paving went from, say, $700,000 to over $2 million. So maybe there's a chance we can work together, like Director Ringen.
Yeah, these last few comments brought back a memory from the Aqua meeting here just recently. I heard one of the breakout sessions, and when it comes to CIP, the one speaker I was listening to says you got the two eyes. You're paying for one of the two eyes. You're either paying for new infrastructure or you're paying on interest to fix it afterwards. And I thought that was a good analogy. So I'm glad to see that that Jen, you're on it with your budget here and the engineering department as a whole. So thank you.
Good presentation on real good progress for what we do. TUD. It makes sense from beginning to end. Budget matches up. We're catching up. Good job.
Just to add, before you guys adopt the budget, you will get a book with that has all of the project information sheets in it. So instead of just seeing the highlights, you'll see every single project in it. Yes, that's for 5 years. With a scope and need, and it identifies whether the design is in-house, out-of-house, contractor build, or TUD build. So it has kind of, it's like a snapshot of the project. This next month? Yep.
Thanks, Jen.
Very. Do we have any public comment on that? Seeing none, back to the board.
Okay,
So-
item number 3, introduction and discussion of the fiscal year 2026-2027 operating budget.
All right, that's me.
Easier.
Think it's working, Gary?
We have power issue? That's
You done? Okay. Okay, we'll move to item number 5, which is the Coach's Corner. What is an urban water management?
Hey, good morning. Really starting to, actually not just starting, I'm enjoying these coaches corners, these opportunities. And it occurred to us a few weeks ago that our update to the urban water plan is due. And I think it's a good time to just kind of give you a quick overview of what it's all about. So an urban water management plan is a long-range planning document required of urban water suppliers by the state of California every 5 years. It ensures that water suppliers like TUD have enough water to serve their communities reliably, not just today, but decades into the future. TUD is currently in the process of updating its urban water management plan. The 2025 plan is currently available for public review and comment and will be presented to the board of directors on June 9th. June 9th is going to be a busy day. Plan on it. And then return to the board for consideration following a public meeting on June 23rd. That was sent out to you guys on May 7th. Thanks for call. And it's a large document sent out early on purpose, so you had plenty of time to dive in. The plan serves as the district's roadmap for maintaining reliable service, planning for growth, meeting state requirements, and guiding long-term infrastructure investment. The plan evaluates future raw, treated, and recycled water demands, available supplies, and the district's ability to meet needs under normal conditions and drought. It also documents conservation programs and key capital improvements. The 2025 plan confirms the district has sufficient water supplies to meet projected demands through at least 2045, including during drought conditions, supported by conservation and ongoing infrastructure investment. TUD relies heavily on surface water and must continue planning for climate variability. Conservation and system improvements remain essential to maintaining long-term reliability. Bottom line is TUD is well positioned to provide safe, reliable water into the future with planning, conservation, stable supply agreements, and infrastructure investments working together to support long-term reliability. That's the end of that. If you have any questions, some of us are here to answer. He said it's in your email, pretty large document. Tony's been in our engineering department, been working operations department now, working on that for quite some time, so.
Just
be a show.
comments that it's a daunting document, 399 pages, but getting into it, it tells a lot about our operation. And the fact that we are on top of that, it's a DWR document, and a lot of our grants come from there. So it was worth the read.
Yep.
Good thing.
Got a kind of a dumb question. Tuolumne County Urban Water Management Plan doesn't compute. Help me.
Right, so we all had the same question. I didn't read it in here, but you know, what constitute an urban water manager or supplier? It's if you have 3,000 connections or more, or deliver 3,000 acre feet or more. In our CSD, Cold Spring. guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Corey, how are we doing there? Oh, oh. Public comment? Any public comment on the urban water? Seeing none? Turn. So Carolyn, I really love your graphs. They help, but can you do a song and dance without them? Okay,
Do we want to do the update on district operations? Give Corey.
yeah,
Boy.
yeah. And you have to do it without all the pictures.
That's okay.
Good idea. District operate.
Okay. Today, I am happy to present on behalf of Eric Hall and the rest of operations, the brief operations report for April. And I always say this, but it just dawns on me, you know, a lot happens inside of 30 days. So this is for April and we're near the end of May. And so, you know, think about things. Some things may have changed over time. So see on the raw water, division, I noted that, they completed another raw water drafting point on the Algerine ditch. So that's neat. That makes 5 or 6. 5, so that's good. Making progress. Placed 200 feet. Oh, this is a note for me to ask Eric about this 200 feet of shotcrete on Kincaid. Let's talk about that later. A fella came up to me at the Willow Springs lift station, has concerns about a drainage from the ditch down in Willow Springs. It might have a culvert issue, but I just don't know if it's our issue or somebody else's. We'll talk about that later. Our crews assisted PG&E with flume work during the annual spring outage, which was kind of neat. And can't not note that we deployed 200 goats near the at the Tuolumne Water Treatment Plant vegetation control. Cool. Water supply. It's hard to predict, but what do we know about end of spill today that we thought we knew in April?
It's coming a little bit sooner than we thought. It was gonna be, I had dates last week, but I'm second guessing the dates that I said last week with the flows that we're seeing. So still, it's gonna be in the first few weeks in June, I'm gonna guess. But
Can you briefly just kind of describe what end of spill is?
okay, so we watched snow water equivalent using the GNLE gauging station up there. And so we just watched the snow melt and the water run away from it. And on the 16th, basically it hit 0. And then usually we have about 20 days of runoff after it hits 0. So last year we had 13 days of it. This year we just don't know. So, but end of spill is, you know, all your snow melts, all the runoff comes down to just a minimum. Reservoirs fill up, you spill for a bit, and then your demand overtakes what is inflowing into the reservoirs, and then we're on stored water.
Past years, when has it been earlier or later? Well, most of the times later, but have we had ones that are earlier than this year?
The earliest in a spill that I can remember was June 7th, I believe. I don't know right now.
Well, it has not occurred yet.
Yeah, we're still in spill.
Any day.
Yeah.
But then you get weather like this, rain coming, so.
Changes.
So, how much, from here on out will get diverted to the Philadelphia.
So I don't have
And
a,
I'm sorry, Dave.
No, it's-
Once again, I don't want to exactly.
yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
so it's running at, like, it's running at 45 CFS, and they'll watch the flows coming down, and as the flows slow down, the Philly will slow down, because they'll, some of the water does need to go into lines, and they help keep it topped off and keep it full. So it's, when runoff stops, we start with a full reservoir.
At Lions.
At Lions,
Right.
yes.
Right. And at that point, then the Philadelphia is, I'm assuming gets cut off.
It usually goes down to zero because it goes into the maintenance time for it, yes.
And there's a certain amount too that has to go for environmental flows, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And PG&E is the lucky one that gets to do all that.
Yes, they
figuring
are.
And
Yeah.
testing the valve.
Yep.
Thank you.
For the record, Eric, too, because I get asked this question a lot. When you say into spill, which reservoir are you talking about?
Both
Okay.
Pinecrest and Lions, they usually land within a few days of each other.
Thank you.
I've had people ask about Phoenix and everything else, so you're talking about both. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, water operations, just looking at their productions, the demands, their well production, the levels of the well, everything looks fairly good to me. I see the demands up some, which is fine. Yeah, everything there looks pretty good. Nothing to write home about. Met some pictures, so you're not looking at pictures, sorry. Well, I won't either then. Oh, they are. Oh. So are you on the Lakewood Pond? You're on page 9? Yeah, so there's some pictures of the Lakewood Pond and the lower picture of the Lakewood plant where we draw water during emergency outages or planned outages out of that pond, and we can pump it over to be used at the Lakewood treatment plant. Great pictures. I guess I haven't seen the new dam. That's really, really nice. How old was that new dam? Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see, page 10, I noticed that, this is important, right? The distribution department is responsible for the annual flushing of the water, the treated water mains. And it's really good practice, to do that while we have spill, right? And so they have completed it now before the end of the spill, which is really good. That's good to note. I'm
Hey,
also
Don?
note,
Can I just throw something in there? Because I was doing this very same thing in our little water system. And I had a customer come up and say, why are you wasting all this water? It's not wasting water to do that, right? So this is a thing that has to happen at least once a year, preferably twice. And that's a requirement. So
Yeah,
those of us, those ratepayers that might be thinking we're wasting water, we are not wasting water.
Yeah, it cleans the whole system up, and then, like, we do annual flushing, but then we have a lot of stuff that's on quarterlies, just in dead spots and bad zones like that, just to keep the water fresh.
So at the aqua conventions and so forth, you see a lot of vendors selling a lot of stuff. And one of the things is flush water recirculation. Is that anything that has any bearing on what we do? Any economics there?
In a normal year for us, no. If we were back in a major drought, we did look at some different things when we were in the drought of how we could
Mhm.
not just dump that water on the ground.
Okay. But it probably doesn't pencil out for us.
Not real, no.
just to reaffirm, right, we're in spill condition. All the water that we use to flush those mains, with the exception of well water, comes from the river, right? So the waters, even while we're flushing water mains, that water, there's still water in the river going, in spill. So, or it's not a waste of water. It's a good use of water. Yep,
Doing its job.
doing his job. Good boy, not anymore. What page? Oh, I was still working on this. I also think, I just find this just very good for my head and our space, but talk about putting our crews to multiple benefit use. I'm still working with the distribution team. The on-call contractor completed the block work up the new Cedar Ridge tanks for the hydromatic station. But our crews, our distribution crews are doing a lot of the work to finish up the block building.
Yeah, they're gonna do, they did the trusses, they'll do the roof, they'll dry it all in, all the metal on that, and then they'll come back in and do all the plumbing on the inside, set the pumps. And then we'll do all the electrical and SCADA.
A lot of savings there.
So in relation to that, as I was going through the CIP list, it just occurred to me, I wonder how much of the CIP is done in-house versus subcontracted out. It might be, it might be fun to highlight how much we spend in-house versus out of the house, so to speak, and how much savings we get. I mean, that's such a benefit to the ratepayers.
It is, I have asked numerous times over the years, the last 10 years, for a breakdown with this, and I haven't quite got to the point where I want ready to share it with you, but I'm happy to just tell you that I don't know the percentages. What percent? There was a time we did very little, if any, in-house. Then we had a construction team and we built the treatment plants. That was about it. Now, today, and I was gonna get it, we have 4 crews out there doing new construction. The distribution team working on stuff and the construction team working on 3 different projects. Today, there's 4 teams out there working, so pretty remarkable. Okay, turning the page. How we doing, Corey? Oh, you're still working. Oh, so on page 12, you can see that block work that I was talking about up there at the Cedar Ridge upper tanks. Some other work that the distribution does. I'm on page 13 now, construction and maintenance, where I see that they've, another month where they had 17 leaks or mainline breaks to repair, which is, find some wood and knock on it. That's not a bad number. We've seen well over 30 in a month at times. The projects I was just referring to, the Upper Cedar Ridge tanks, they're working on that, the Summit distribution and the Midland distribution. Those are the paving projects that you were referring to, so good work.
Yeah, it won't be the presentation, which will have a lot more data on it, but yeah, we were talking about workarounds.
Got a workaround? You can give up my computer. Okay. Moving along, page 15, some more work that the construction and maintenance crews are doing at the Summit tank and Cedar Ridge tanks. 16 more pictures, crews working.
Are we done with water? Gonna move into wastewater?
I was done with, I'm on the construction. Yeah, sorry. Now I'm going to wastewater.
So I was just curious if we might, in future monthly reports, include anything related to PFAS.
Sure.
Just a thought.
Sounds like a coach's corner first. How about a coach's corner? That's complicated. That's really complicated, but I like it. Okay, wastewater collection. They're very consistent. They have a regiment that they complete every month, and it's very important. It's great work, but again, nothing that alarms me. They did roughly about 4 miles, in between 4 and 5 miles every month of cleaning and inspection. That cleaning and inspection leads to work orders that they perform in-house most of the time. Sometimes it's large enough it goes to outside on-call contractors. Sometimes our crews do it, but this was really prudent work that is in line with our another future Coaches Corner, MMP, SSMP, Sanitary Sewer Management Plan. We'll go through that too someday. Good work by our crews, staying on top of things. We did have one sanitary sewer overflow that resulted, that hit the threshold to be reportable. And on wastewater treatment, again, I just look at these numbers, the influent, effluent, everything, you know, for the time of year, everything looks good. Our septic hauling numbers are about consistent. The only thing interesting to note here is that we've just begun our reclamation season, so we're just a month into it. Page 20. First of all, hats off and congratulations to Tony Diaz for completing his water audit validator certificate, which will have benefit for us. We don't have to do something outside. Manny Espino passed his wastewater grade 3 certification. That's great for him. And Reese Hampton, also in the wastewater side, has obtained his operator and training certification. Yeah, really good. Okay. Monthly, I thought this was interesting. I want to kind of read this out loud for everybody. We have a massive emphasis on safety, and here's just some that I think are interesting. The safety topic of the month was spring hazards. Staff reviewed spring and warm weather hazards, including poison oak, ticks, mosquitoes, black widows, bees, wasps, hornets, and rattlesnakes. Information covered included identification, prevention, action, and emergency response after care treatment. So, happens every year. I am a victim of a black widow spider. If you're not, don't. They're not fun. We did some site inspections. We do these in-house site inspections. Sometimes that's done with a third party, but a lot of time we do it with our own safety team and safety committee. So good work there. And a newcomer to the ops report is our information technology security training. Yeah. So that's becoming a more and more important deal. I know we all are required to do our training over the course of the month. Staff collectively dedicated 18 and a half hours to security awareness training program with an impressive average of test score of 90%, reflecting both their commitment and strong grasp of the material. And that's the end of that report. I'm loving these reports, Eric. Great job. They're very useful. Melissa helps put them together. She gathers all the material, puts it in order, gets proofread by Eric and me, and finally get it out there. It's just an awesome report. Very beneficial. I'll review these things. I'll go back several years from now and 5 years, 8 years in a day, and it's really helpful. I'm out of filler material.
We go back to the operating.
Okay, so we'll go back to item number 3, which is the introduction and discussion of the fiscal year 2026-2027 operating budget.
Yeah, so I think we have several options for workarounds. If one is Abby and Eric can give you their laptops and you could view it from there because you can see it online. It is broadcasting online. There's also, I don't know for this, but you can see it on these screens up here too. It is broadcasting there. I don't know what's preferred.
Those don't happen to turn, do they?
It could just sit
out
over there.
if they want.
Oh.
I don't know what's preferred.
Somebody want to connect me?
And remember what's what.
Yeah.
And remember
Which top suit is that?
Yeah.
Technology. Yep. We're good up here.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, now I'm good. Thank you. Good job, team. Emergency's coming all shapes.
Nimble.
Nimble.
Yes. All right, so this is going to be the first look, which you actually get to look, thankfully, at it, at fiscal year 2027 operating budget. And Jen already presented CIP to you. I will touch base on that as far as how it fits into the whole budget, but this, for the most part, is the operating side of the budget for fiscal year 2027, which begins July 1st and ends June 30th. And so I always kind of start out with this statement. It's just information that's in our budgeting policy because I think it encapsulates pretty well what we try to do when we're coming up with budget. But essentially, the annual budget is prepared in accordance with the current budgeting policy and is the planned spending document. The primary goal or target is to provide the highest possible level of service to the district customers while maintaining a sound financial condition. The board-approved annual budget document provides the spending limits by fund for the fiscal year. Several goals within this policy and process are to keep current expenditures less than current revenues, which would result in net income, which is total revenue, less operations and maintenance costs, less debt service costs, and less capital projects funded from rates greater than or equal to 0. So that's kind of the goal or the target when we're coming up with budget for the year. And we try to come and present it to you in that way. So today what I'm going to talk about or bring you through is kind of these 6 things. First, the budget strategies we had for this fiscal year. And then I'll talk you through revenues. And then I'll start to talk you through operating expenses, which includes our labor. It includes non-labor operations and maintenance expenses. And then I'll touch shortly on debt service and capital, not tons because Jen already presented much of the CIP. This year, I'm also going to be talking about reserves. I haven't talked about that as much in prior years. And then I'm also just going to touch base on grants and loans as well. So first, looking at our budget strategies, we kind of come through it with a 3-pronged approach. So the first thing I do essentially is look at revenue because we need to know how much we have in order to know how much we can spend. And this year, some of the strategies are not a whole lot different than previous years. A few years back, we kind of changed some strategies just based on revenue not looking at like it was going to be as much as what we thought it was going to be when we did rate increases. So one of those strategies that we changed, I think it's been 2 years now, and it's the same this year, is that we've started including connection and capacity fees in our budget. We do get them every year. They just were never included in the past. It was just more like at the end of the year, it was kind of like a little bonus. But now we've started to actually include that in our budget because we realize we are going to have income from them every year. So we kind of take a strategy that we just look at our 5-year average. We eliminate outlying years where there might have been some really big projects that we probably won't get every single year, but based on that 5-year average, we do include it in the budget that we're going to receive that revenue. So that's not changed a whole lot compared to the last 2 years.
I was just wondering, I may be wrong, but the connection capacity fees, don't those have to be set aside for specific expenditures? I mean, they can't go into day-to-day operations.
Correct. So they are set aside for capital related projects, but our whole budget does include capital costs in it. So really they can be used towards the funding of those capital projects. But yes, it's considered restricted revenue. If we didn't have the right projects or if we didn't have CIP projects, which is not the case, but if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to use it for operations. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
A second strategy for this year is that we're, of course, including 4th year of our scheduled rate increases. So we're in our 4th year already of that 5-year plan. And this year in water, that's about a 1.2% increase and sewer is 1.1. And as far as assumption and a strategy we use for water revenue, we assumed that we're going to have the same water consumption this year as we have had in the previous year. So that's still a little bit of an assumption. It can fluctuate from year to year. But the assumption is that we'll have the same consumption. And then this year, which is a little bit different, is I've increased investment income in the budget, again. So we did that last year because we were receiving more than what had previously historically been received. And this year again, we're receiving more than what we budgeted this year. So I'm increasing the investment income in the budget again, a certain amount. It's still not even to the full amount that we are projecting to receive this year, because I'm still being a little bit conservative on it, just in case the economy changes, but have increased that a little bit more this year as well. That's kind of some of the main strategies when it came to revenue this year. Then looking at operating expenses, specifically looking at labor. This is something also that we changed a couple of years ago, but continuing with the same assumption and the same strategy, that we're going to budget our historic personnel levels versus 100% of our personnel costs. And the logic behind that is that each year we do have, we never spend 100% of, or I should say, we don't have 100% of our staff here 100% of the time, meaning that sometimes there's vacancies throughout the year. And so instead of budgeting as if we're going to have our staff here 100% of the time, we budget that it's going to be about 98%, which has been about the historical average of that rate. So that's continuing again this year, is that labor is at 98% of the full labor costs. The second strategy this year, which is different than last year, is that we have a new labor contract. So these numbers that you're seeing include any changes associated with that labor contract. And then lastly, some strategies this year is related to capital, is that water, we are budgeting lower than we did in fiscal year 26 because of Sierra Pine. So, and I think we mentioned that in the 5-year forecast process, as well as in some Sierra Pines meeting. We're anticipating spending a good amount of our own labor force on CIP, which means we won't have quite as much time available for other types of CIP projects. So the actual CIP budget amount that you'll see for water is a little bit lower than what you've seen in previous years. On the flip side of that, in sewer, our capital expense is higher than fiscal year 26, and there's just more projects associated that needed to be done. And so they have more than what's been done in previous years or been budgeted in previous years. And the main strategy change associated with that is that our strategy is to actually balance with reserves, because it's actually more than what the average CIP amount was kind of projected at the time that we did rate increases. So it's actually more than what our revenue could sustain just in one fiscal year. So we're saying maybe we could balance that with money we have from reserves. And so I'll go into that in more detail at the end when I talk about reserves. But just to let you know, that's a strategy change this year. All right, so then the first thing we want to look at is revenue. And so with those strategies in mind, our total combined revenue is about 33.3 million this year. So this is water and sewer added together. And then this slide shows you what those look like separated from each other. Water is about 23.2 million and sewer is about 10.1. And you can see the various categories of revenue that we have for each of those funds that look very similar to each other. Service charges, property taxes, debt recovery for water, investment income, capacity and connection fees, which you can now see in the budget, and other income. And you can see all of the dollar amounts there. Then to see it graphically, if you put them back together again, you can see those different categories, how much they represent of the total revenue that we receive. So, yes.
So you know, we're about 20 seconds behind you, our
Oh.
refresh rate. So, yeah. Yeah. He's probably on the other one.
Yeah, Glenn's on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Looks are-
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know. Yeah. So don't get too fast.
Okay, I won't. Maybe what I'll do is I'll make sure that you're seeing that slide before I start talking about it. So are you seeing like a circle?
We got the pie chart.
Okay, you got the pie chart. Are you seeing Pac-Man? So anyways, what this chart represents is how much each of those categories represent as of the whole of our revenue. So you can see that service charges represents about 91% of our total revenues. And the second largest is property taxes. The third largest is investment income, and then down from there. So you can kind of see what it looks like as a whole. And moving on to a new slide. Let me know when you see it. Got it? Not yet? Oh, there is a bit of a delay. 20 seconds. I'll start hitting it before I start. I'm ready. Okay. So this is a little bit of a different budget presentation today. Sorry about that. The whole day. So this slide just tells you what our total expenses are. So this is our combined outlay for water and sewer is about $33.1 million is what we're projecting for fiscal year 27. And to see that breakdown, which you're not going to see yet, but when you do, you're going to see a pie chart that breaks it down by our very broad category types. We actually budget line by line, which I think I counted, we have about 600 lines of things that we budget. But what you're seeing now is the very broad, as those get uploaded to the very broad categories. So this year, fiscal year 27, you can see that labor is about 17.7 million. Non-labor operating costs is about 8.7. Capital is about 5.6. Debt is about 1 million, and reserves is about $500,000. And this is combined. So you can see that labor does represent a big part of our budget, which is very typical for the type of organization that we are. And then I just show a quick comparison as to what that looked like in comparison to last year. And so you can see that some of the percentages are changing a little bit. So operational costs are going up. In this fiscal year, labor is about 53 versus 48. Non-labor operating costs was about 25% of our budget. Now it's about 26. You can see that capital this year has gone down, but this is where I want to also address actually one thing that Director Jacobs was mentioning. So part of this is going down is just because we are working on Sierra Pines, and we're going to be having less CIP and water that gets contracted out. One of the things that I want to mention is that when we budget all of our personnel costs as if they're going to be part of operating, as if they weren't going to be doing any CIP. So all of our personnel costs are sitting in these labor categories. However, what actually happens at the end of the year is that when our labor force works on CIP projects, that money actually is a CIP cost. So when the financial statements are presented to you, there's a much larger amount of costs that are allocated to CIP. So through the years, you may see this number fluctuate, but what you're seeing is really just that budgeted outside costs and materials and equipment, those types of things. What you're not seeing in those numbers is how much our forces are spending, or I should say, working on CIP, because their actual salary costs become CIP. That makes sense. So this is just how it's budgeted, but it's not what actually happens. That makes any sense. This is just a distinction I wanted to make, and Director Jacobs had actually already alluded to it in the previous ways.
So do we do this as far as direct material costs, or that's included in CIP, not operations and maintenance?
Correct, if
Okay.
it's for a CIP project.
Okay, so the material direct costs are CIP hard dollars, and then the labor costs are kind of fluctuate. They kind of move from
Yes, they move from
O&M
operating
to
over to CIP.
CIP.
Correct. Yeah,
It would still be at some point in the future, it'd be helpful, as I mentioned earlier, to just kind of see what percentage wise,
Mhm.
you know, we're doing direct labor or, you know, CIP that we're doing in-house versus
right.
out of the house. And then what the savings are. It would be great to quantify that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something, especially when
with
I'm
that.
doing the year end, because like I said, you don't see it in budget, but year end, we would more like, we would see that. All right, so then moving on to our part of our operating expenses, just looking at labor in a little more detail. So labor this year is about 17.7 million. And you're probably not there yet, are you? Apologize for getting. The slide you're about to see represents what those labor costs are made up of. And it will show you wages. It will show you health insurance. It will show you PERS costs. Now you're there. Retiree health and taxes. So you can see 55% of it is related to wages, and on down the line, you can see the different distinctions that makes up that total labor costs. And one thing I wanted to point out is, sorry, did I see a hand go up?
It was remarkable that for every 55 cents we pay somebody, we're paying another 45 cents in other stuff.
Yeah, and piece of that, I mean, you can see that insurance is a big chunk. Retiree health is a big piece of that as well, which is for essentially employees who aren't here any longer, but the previous contracts allowed, and there's still some of that pays for health.
Dr. Carnes.
Yeah, good point, Glenn. I'm glad you brought that up because I know all the businesses I've been involved with for the last 30 years, rule of thumb, if you hire somebody for X amount of dollars per hour or X amount of dollars per month, you just double it because by the time you get done with all the other stuff, other than just the actual wage, you're looking at almost a double amount. So that's not just a TUD thing. That's
No.
my point. That's across the board in business in general.
And then one of the things I just wanted to talk about this year as well is that part of those labor costs, as I mentioned at the beginning, included the labor contract. So that's new this year, new things in there, changes in there. And so as part of our costs that are going up because of just labor cost increases, I wanted to actually show the percentage of how much is just normal increases that we would have versus increases that we have due to the labor contract. And so you can see that just our normal other increases is about 54% of the total increase this year, and contract increases are about 46%. And some of those other things that, are just normal that would have gone up anyways and we've talked about this kind of all along the way. We talked about it in the 5-year forecast, but is our OPEB unfunded liability payment, our PERS unfunded liability payment, those have gone up. Our estimated health insurance rate increases. And also that this year we're going to be funding a water operator position that wasn't funded last year. So that's included in that other increase as well. The contract increases, as Dawn mentioned, it includes the labor market wage adjustments and their associated taxes and benefits, but it's also being offset by the reduction in employer health insurance premium contributions. So, but I just wanted to put this graph up there to help you visualize what the increases in labor actually are associated with. Then moving on to non-labor operations and maintenance expenses. Our total non-labor expenses that are operations and maintenance are budgeted this year at about $8.7 million. And this year there are patch paving increases. So we kind of already talked about that a little bit, but this year we're budgeting about $300,000 in patch paving increases, not increases total, I should say. We have some projects this year that were not in last year's, like some one-time projects, like we have a filter repack project in this year's budget that was not in last year's. We have an IT project. We have some property and liability insurance increases and some one-time purchases. But the slide that's actually in front of you right now, which hopefully is there by now, kind of just summarizes our top 10 non-labor, non-CIP, non-debt costs. And they these 10 things really represent 68% of our non-labor operations maintenance costs. So our number one cost is chemicals, then our general insurance, and then electricity. And something to note is that electricity has actually gone down. It used to be, last year it was our number one. So we do have a reduction in electric usage, but we also have a reduction in electricity rates. So that's essentially how that's dropping in cost, which is great. I don't anticipate that will happen forever, but
So I'm wondering, and I don't know if you have an answer for me or not, but is that, I can't believe PG&E rates went down, but we're part of the Tuolumne County
EPA.
Power thing. So those rates went down.
correct.
I wonder how they managed that.
I don't have the full detail yet on exactly how it is for this year. Last year, they actually went down as well. And it was because they had some money in reserve
Okay.
that they were using, that was gonna drop our rates, because our rates actually went down last year as well, and they're even going down more compared to this year. So I think that there's still some reserves, but I think, I don't fully understand exactly how their funding works. But I think that they had some rate decreases, which they're passing along to us. I haven't gotten tons of detail on it yet, but there's probably more to come.
Thank you.
So that's essentially our major operations and maintenance costs, is the labor and the non-labor. And after that, we also have debt that's associated with CIP projects that we completed in past years. And so I don't know if that slide's up for you yet. But we have about a total of $1 million in debt that we will pay out in fiscal year 27. There's about 4 loans that are related to water and 3 loans that are related to sewer. And this is the second year of making those sewer debt payments for the new wastewater treatment facility. I don't know if you see that slide yet, or, yeah, okay. So after all of that, putting everything together, in 20 seconds, you'll see it. It's an interesting one. Essentially, this slide that you're going to see summarizes everything put together. So it will show you our revenues, water first, and then sewer, and then the total together. But looking at water, as I mentioned before, we're expecting about 23.1 million in revenue. And then total operations and maintenance costs, we're expecting about 18 million in those types of costs. So our net before capital and before debt would be about 5.1 million. And one thing to mention on that is I'm always keeping an eye on those numbers, because we have what are called, and I've mentioned this in the 5-year forecasts, they're debt service covenants, that we have to have that at a certain level in order to be in compliance with the loans that we've taken out on previous CIP projects. So that's an important number. That's kind of why I segregate that out there. And in this year, we meet those debt service covenants without any problem. Then after that line, it takes out the capital expenses and debt service. So 233,000 water debt, 3.1 million of capital projects. And the bottom line in water is that we're actually scheduling to transfer to reserve about $1.8 million. And that's essentially because we're gonna be spending a lot of time on Sierra Pines. So we have some of that extra capital money that we can put in reserve and then use it for future years.
Director Jacobs?
Just curious, what is the requirement to cover the covenant?
Yes, I
cover
have
the debt?
it. It is, where? Yeah, so for water, we only have to have $280,000. And so we're, as you can see, well above that. For sewer, we have to have 944,000. So we're still above that as well.
And refresh my memory, what's the,
You have to
what's the
have,
requirement?
you have to have 120% or 1.2 times your annual debt service payment. So this is a requirement of those debt covenants that when we signed them, we said, yes, we will maintain that.
For each enterprise? So water and sewer.
Correct. Yeah, you have to keep them separate. Then looking at sewer, we're looking at revenue of about 10.1 million, total operations and maintenance costs of close to 8.5. So our net before capital is 1.6 million. Then debt and capital added together is about 3.2 million. Notice that capital improvement line of about 2.5 is higher than what we normally budget for. And so you can see that we're actually would be operating at a deficit of about 1.6 million, but what we're suggesting and recommending is that we actually pull that from capital reserves. And I'll go into that in the next slide so you can see what that looks like. But first, looking at water reserves, this slide essentially shows you, once you can see it, what our operating goals, what our reserve goals are. And these were established by our reserve policy, which was passed by the board. So you're going to see a line of where those goals are. And then you're going to see some columns essentially that will show whether we're up to that goal level or not quite there. So in water, we're not quite there. So it will be a good thing that we're transferring to reserve this year. That will help us to reach those target levels. And there are several different categories of reserves that are outlined in that reserve policy. And I think there was a coach's corner on it not too long ago as well. And so that's operating reserves, contingency reserves, capital reserves. In water, we also have PG&E reserves, and we also have restricted, which restricted is conditions that have been put on us by outside organizations. So we have to have those. We have to meet our goals, and those, it would be bad news if we didn't. And that's essentially, in our case, those restrictions they would be capacity and connection fees. If for some reason we weren't able to use them on certain projects, they would sit there and restricted, as well as we have debt service requirements out there. So in addition to we have to keep a certain dollar amount of money set aside, which was also in our loan agreement. So it's usually 1 year's worth of debt service that we have to have set aside. So if you can see the water one, you can see that we're meeting that, no problem. But aren't quite there on our other goals. In sewer, and I keep forgetting to do this in advance so you can actually see it when I'm talking. Same logic as far as the graph goes. The line represents our goals, which are outlined in that reserve policy. The columns represent where we were, and I forgot to mention this in water, but this is where we were at the end of the year, last year, the end of fiscal year 25, because that's when we know where we're at, is when the year has ended. And so in sewer, and I don't know if, can you see it yet? Okay. You can see that we are above our goal levels. And so that's one reason why we're recommending that in this fiscal year, when we're able to do more capital than what we normally budget, that we actually pull it from capital reserves, because our capital reserve level looks healthy. So that's kind of the recommendation that we made and the strategy that we came up with this year. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of that. But the last thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is just our grants and loans. And so Jen already touched on this in CIP, but one thing that is not included in these budgets at all, because TUD historically has not included it, is any grants that we're going to be receiving or any loan money that we are going to be receiving, and the associated expenses with receiving those grants and loans. So the expenses related to, or basically what those are funding. And so I just wanted to bring up a snapshot. You saw our budget, but this is all the other work that's going to be happening and all the other money that's going to be flowing in and out related to grants and loans. And so the total is about $54 million. And Jen had mentioned about 35.6 of that is grants. And I just kind of have the breakdown here just really broadly. Sierra Pines represents about 27.5 million grants and 18.1 million loans. We have consolidation projects that represent about 5 million, water take projects about 3 million, and then there's CAL FIRE fuels reduction and other operating grants in about $240,000. So I think it's something that I've wanted to show you, and I'm glad that Jen did as well, is that we have our budget, but outside of our budget is all this other stuff that's going on. And so that's one little snapshot of it right there. And again, not all of this, like Sierra Pines won't be all next year. It's gonna be, it'll take a couple of years, but this is what we have in actual awards right now. Ongoing. And that's the end of my presentation, if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, well, first of all, the presentation is excellent. Just, excuse me, just to bring clarity to something that's quite enormous. Just, you know, in a few short slides, just making it really clear what's going on. So great job doing that. Appreciate that. Going back to reserves, I know it's a favorite topic, but you showed a chart of the water reserves and the sewer reserves. Can we do I know you're not expecting to do it now, but it would be good to have another slide maybe for future presentations to show the combined reserves. Because here we're in the budget summary, we've got the transfer from water 1.8 million and transfer from sewer 1.6 million. It's kind of hard for me to see how that relates. I mean,
Yeah, so I think in total, we're actually putting into reserves 183,000 or something like that. But something to note is that we can't ever mix those.
Okay.
So sewer reserves have to stay for sewer and water reserves have to stay for water. So it's probably one reason why I don't want to mislead and show them together, because we couldn't actually use them for each other. If that makes sense.
thanks.
Yeah, I had one along those lines too. I wasn't able to read the one on the water reserves. What
Okay.
is the goal? How much do we have in them?
Yeah, let me just pull that up for you back there.
Apparently got closer this year, so good.
And this is more of visual rather than seeing the actual dollar amounts. But essentially in our reserve policy, for operating, we want to have 90 days of operations and maintenance. Contingency, we want to have 2% of operations and maintenance. Capital, we want to have upcoming fiscal year capital budget. So those main ones, we were about 37% funded in each of them last fiscal year.
Total dollar amount?
So operating is about 4 million and we had about 1.5 million. Contingency is about 327,000. We had 121,000. And capital, which was this year's capital budget, was 5.8 million and we had about 2.1, excuse me, 2.2. So we were about 37% funded in each of those. Now that was the end of last fiscal year. It will be a different story after this fiscal year and after June 30th of this fiscal year. And then a different story after the end of next fiscal year. I'm often in 3 years once.
So is a difference in the goal and the actual something that we should be concerned about as a board?
Well, it's something that we're continuously looking to improve, I should say.
I have to say, we've performed a lot of miracles in these last 10 years.
Yes.
One of them is pulling our water reserves from a negative 10 million to a positive reserve
Yeah.
in 10 years. So
Awesome.
while
Great.
we're not where we want to be, we have made huge strides to get there in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think, was it last year or the year before was the first time it became positive. And I had this megaphone in my presentation because I had looked back 10 years and it had been negative,
Yeah.
but it had been a slow, less negative, if you will,
Great job.
to finally
Yeah.
getting to positive. So we're making steps forward.
Yeah. Great job, and not in any way diminishing the fantastic thing that's happened. I mean, what a turnaround. What a turnaround. But for perspective, how do we compare with other sister agencies like
Yeah,
Aqua in general or
that's the other thing actually, which I think I mentioned at some point in time, but I also kind of want to mention what reserves are. So it's what you own less what you owe. So most places, because of unfunded liabilities like PERS and OPEB, many places are negative. So the fact that we're positive is actually a really, really positive thing. yeah, there's lots of places that just can't keep up with those unfunded liabilities. So I don't know if that helps with the comparison, but.
Thank you, Carolyn. Great as always.
Just an FYI, that was the first look there. And so this is our first stab at it, although it's pretty, I think we're pretty close to what you're going to see on June 9th, but we will be presenting it to you for on June 9th for approval for next fiscal year. So there's still a little bit of fine tuning that we're doing, but it will look pretty close to this first look.
We have any public comment about the budget? Seeing none, bring it back. Next thing, staff reports.
Okay, I'll be brief. Two things. On the 14th of May, Eric Johnson and Tony and I had a municipal service review coordination meeting with Mike Lucan from RGS. This has to do with LAFCO and our required MSR update every few years, 5 years, whatever it is. We were also on the phone with Robert, somebody from Helix, who is the consultant. Mike Lucan is the acting executive director for LAFCO. This Robert person is from Helix, a consultant that LAFCO hired to do our review. Now, Antonio has done an amazing job. A lot of work landed on Antonio to update this review. And so it'll be forthcoming, but we had a good productive meeting. He was very impressed with our ability to do all that we do and provide quality updates. So I look forward to a little positive update on our MSR. And then lastly, I attended the Willow Springs ribbon cutting ceremony on the 21st. That's it for me.
Nothing to report.
Just real briefly, in addition to the grants that you saw, we're actively working in the background on a couple other grants that the board should be familiar with. One is to extend potable water to 24 ditch domestic customers. The board authorized submission of a funding application, and we also went through the CEQA process with the board. It's been a number of months, but that's just ongoing. I don't have any word on when we'll get funding, but I'm pretty optimistic we'll eventually get funding. One other grant is the Tulalip recycled water main extension. I know Director Ringen's been very interested in that, and we continue to go back and forth with the state on various information requests that they have, and fairly optimistic we'll also receive funding on that. But again, this could be a year or even more, but we'll keep the board apprised of that. And then Motherlode Mobile Estates was mentioned. We're the mobile home park right down the street here on Tuolumne Road. We have a consolidation grant for that and should go out to bid here in the next few weeks and come back to the board with a request to award contract on that. And then we're tracking on the developer front a water main extension that the board authorized for Matheson Health Clinic in Jamestown. Once they build that health clinic, they will receive potable water service from the district, but also fire flow offsite improvements are needed. So there'll be a water main extension and a small cost share from the district to upsize that water main. That's all I have to report.
And I have nothing to report.
Okay, just a few updates on the public outreach side. We thank you all for attending. I appreciate it. The Willow Springs Sewer Lift Station ribbon cutting last Wednesday, the 21st. We had a good attendance there. It was beautiful weather. Tomorrow, we are hosting a Sierra Pines Regional Water Treatment Facility public meeting out on site. And so we're looking forward to that and talking with the community and the residents in the nearby area about what to expect coming up as construction gets going. And then this Friday, the superintendent of schools is hosting its first career technical education expo. And so we're going to be participating there at the fairgrounds, and we'll have a few booths. We'll have a utility truck there. We're going to be doing hands-on demonstrations, hot taps, clamps, how to repair lines. talk about water distribution and all of the things we do here at TUD for folks that want to learn more about the types of careers that we have here on the technical side, excuse me. That starts at 9 a.m. It's mostly for school-aged children during the day, and then there's public can attend in the later afternoon. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that each year since 2021, the district has provided for a scholarship fund to Columbia College for an award to a student there that's pursuing some kind of natural resources or water-related major. And so this year, that scholarship was awarded to Michael J. Matheson, and he wrote us a nice letter that I can send you all. He says that he's graduated from Columbia with distinction and is excited to be attending Chico State in the fall. His major will be in wildland stewardship with a concentration in water. And that will help him as a full-time student. So he appreciates the district for the support there. And like I said, we've been doing that. This is our 6th award. So the Columbia Community College is really appreciative of the support from TUD. And that's the end of my report.
Next, we have Director's Communications, Director Reel.
On May 13th, I attended the special board meeting, and on May 21st, I attended the lift station opening.
I'll ditto that. Special meeting on the 13th and the lift station ribbon cutting on the 21st.
Okay. Also attended the special board meeting in the Will Springs ribbon cutting. 519 attended the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association tour of Roseville Waste Sewer Treatment Plant and the ASR Groundwater Recharge Station. I attended that basically just to get a little better grounding on how these systems work in other areas. The only thing I'll say about that is, thank God we're not involved in groundwater recharge. 520, and participated in the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Legislative Day there in the Capitol. And I'm not going to say a whole bunch about it other than just say that Mountain Counties once again is the leader in trying to advance all the Mountain Counties water associations issues with our legislators, and I think they did once again a very good job. Good for me.
So just to follow up on Mountain Counties, what's our participation with the Urban Water Institute conference in San Diego? Do we have any
We
plans for
have
that?
4 attending, I believe.
4, wonderful. Fantastic. Glad to hear that. So kind of ditto on the special board meeting on the 13th and the Willow Springs ribbon cutting. That was, I was impressed. I mean, the quality of the workmanship and yeah, I mean, I was just very impressed with everything to do with it. So kudos to everybody involved. So thank you. And also I think it's so vital as we are moving into a new rate increase season that we, just continue to do everything we can to do public outreach so people know that there's value. They're paying these bills every month or two, and that they're getting a return on what they're investing in. I was talking, it was interesting. I have a lot of people I know personally and relatives actually that what they flush ends up there. So it was kind of interesting. Just in conversation that we can really, what we do here every day relates to people's everyday lives and the ratepayers are getting their money's worth. So I actually plan to attend the Sierra Pines meeting tomorrow. However, I've got a bit of a conflict as a grandpa. I'm supposed to watch 4 of my grandkids, so I'm going to try to talk my daughter into doing tell them I'm going to take them on a field trip. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her yet about it, so we'll see how that goes. And then on the 28th, I'll be attending a National Special Districts Association Federal Advocacy Committee meeting. It's a Zoom meeting that occurs monthly. And again, the NSDA is, as most of you know, that's the California Special Districts Association is part of National Special Districts Association that represents the interests of 40,000 special districts around the country. There are about, I think, I forget the numbers, some in the neighborhood of 10,000 are actually part of the NSDA right now. But a lot of what they do is very closely allied with ACWA, a Federal Affairs Committee, but they're much broader in their interest because they cover all special districts, not just water and sewer. And then kind of connected with that, this is not kind of alluded to before a little bit, but we received a notice about PFAS trigger levels that were triggered that required a public notice. So I got the email on that on Friday, May 15th. And I noticed a letter went out on April 29th about the PFAS notice. So on May 19th, 4 days later, after the email, EPA announces a $77.3 million for California to address PFAS in drinking water. So hopefully we can get a tiny slice, a very tiny slice of that to help us with some of our issues. And just something that I'm curious about, and I'm sure some of our repairs might be as well, is what is the source of the contamination, and what can we do to to deal with it in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. So
Thank you, Director Jacobs. Appreciate it. And lastly, 511, I met with General Manager Perkins and Director Kearns to finish off the committee assignments, and everybody's up and going on those. I went to the Sierra Pines workshop, where it was a really good presentation, I thought. It's good to see that we're in good shape on that, moving at a good pace. 5:15 went to our first meeting with Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, which was put together, is our friend Carolyn Lott. She seems to be in everything that's good out there. They put this together after the rimfire, trying to pull all sides together so that we can work together to keep that from happening again. And there's about 35 people in the room. They're all from different backgrounds, in different places. So that worked out pretty well. And one person that I ran into there from Tuolumne Bioenergy is Jeremy Deedy. They're just right around the corner, and they've been working on a wood pellet stove project. We've got it just about done. And there's a whole long story, but the short story is I've been talking with General Manager Perkins, and we're going to try to get together a field trip over there. Real short field trip, probably take about an hour out of your day, but we talk to Melissa and get everybody who's interested in the board and going over there to try to pick a day that we can all do it, because it's very interesting and could save us a lot of money in the future. Then went to the Mountain County's Legislative Day, and first time there, really impressed. Mountain County's Legislative Day has been going on. Well, Mountain County's been around since '58, I think, and I'm just impressed with how closely they work with government, try to get things straightened out. The last thing I did was Soulsbyville Lift Station. Watched Director Jacobs cut the ribbon, and that's all I got. That, close the meeting.